Hello and welcome back to the Parasocial podcast where we talk to you, the listener of this podcast. That's right, you. I'm pointing to my wall and shit. And I'm joined once again by my good old pal Marek Ishtar. Marek, how the fuck are you doing?
Well, I'm doing alright, Zig. On the good old Parasocial podcast where we're here for you,
That's right.
of course. But yeah, nah, I'm doing alright for the most part. Today was rather normal, all things considered.
Yeah, because
I
I
yeah,
know yesterday was kind of a fucking shit show for you and whatnot, but, that's neither here and there to, really dive further deep and shit like that, you know what I mean?
yeah, we were trying to record this, and then all of a sudden, some bushi happened, and I got stuck. Well, it gave me some good headway into starting for a writing contest I'm actually doing.
Yeah, that's right, the Writers' Jam that's going on Newgrounds. I
Mm-hmm.
would say
Mm-hmm.
join, but, they already filled up slots and whatnot. Now people are already doing their, prompts as we speak. So,
By the time this episode gets out there, it's gonna be long over. But you can probably still be able to read my story when it's up. So
yeah. And for me, well, as of the date of this recording and whatnot, it is my birthday. I
yes,
turned
happy birthday to Zig.
thank you. I turned the good old 2A today.
I
So,
gotta
yeah.
I gotta do the Crabbio Monday's birthday song for you.
My brother actually.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Couldn't you just do the one from Futurama?
Well, we'd save that one for the live streams.
True, true.
Look. I feel like every time somebody does at least now because I've got to experience this in the past while. I feel like everybody now goes like, "It's my birthday." My mind immediately goes to two things now. It's either that one kid from SpongeBob,
Mm-hmm.
or now I go to the captain. Who's a person that leads like a fighter squadron? That's a captain, yeah.
Yeah, or like a squad leader or some shit like that.
Yeah, whatever the case may be, like at the start of like Ace Combat 4, when you're going into like the first mission, the dude's like, "It's my birthday," and I'm like, okay, that's very funny, very casual about blowing up a bunch of dudes with planes. But either way, I hope your birthday went well, and I wish I was able to get you a gift. But
Nah,
I am
nah,
broke
seriously,
at the
just
moment.
just the birthday wishes are enough and shit like that. To be quite honest with you, like
I am
honestly, the
literally.
biggest gift that I got was the new couch that's out in my living room and shit, and it's really nice. Also, if anybody wants a somewhat used couch, I'm selling it for $200. Just meet me behind the parking lot at Denny's, and we'll discuss things further from there.
What's funnier was we were advertising it as a couch giveaway on the YouTube chat. Nobody took it. Nobody took the opportunity, which is funny.
Well, that's their fucking loss. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody wants a free couch, really? And, like seriously, come on, high quality furniture. No, and take it from me. I slept on that couch. I like that couch. I like
You
that
used
couch a
one of
lot.
the couch cushion. You used one of the couch cushions as a fucking
I did
as a fucking
sit-ups
thing for
on that
sit-ups and
couch.
whatnot. Yeah.
I did sit-ups on that. No, I did sit-ups on the couch wholeheartedly. No shot. It was that comfortable. It was that comfortable, like sitting on that comfortable, like laying on for like at least to go to sleep and shit. Like seriously, it's a nice couch.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little worn, but what used furniture ain't worn? Every fucking hell, the computer chair I'm sitting in is computer chair I'm sitting in right now ain't fucking new. That's for sure. And if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Oh yeah, no, I've basically
Or
broke
replace
into
it, I should
this.
say.
I basically broke into this computer chair and whatnot. But I honestly want to get like a. I honestly want to get like one of those new office chairs and all that shit. Just because
Oh, but
like
come on, Zig, you're a gamer. Don't you want one of those extreme, quote unquote, high, quote unquote, quality, quote unquote, gamer chairs? With the fucking red and the
I don't want
blue
my
and
back to be a fucking wreck.
the. Well, come on, you can get a massage component installed. You want it. You want that. Come on, it'll be like right on your back.
You know, the more I get older and shit like that, the more
Yes.
I understand less and less.
What the fuck does that even supposed to mean?
I don't fucking know. I'm just saying words right now, man.
So yeah, I guess that leads us into the topic for today.
Right. Culture shock and
Yes.
things regarding culture shock and whatnot.
Well, we've both had like minute experiences with culture shock. Zig actually, did you say you read a book in preparation for this or something?
I didn't read a book. I actually watched an old segment of Harlan Ellison's Watching and whatnot. So, for those who don't know, Harlan Ellison was this big science fiction, speculative fiction writer back in the day and whatnot. He wrote I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Oh,
Um
jeez.
yeah, that was him. He also did many screenplays and whatnot. He actually did this one with Isaac Asimov that actually never saw the light of day and shit. But you know. Oh, and
That's
City
the
on the Edge
robot
of...
guy, yeah.
Yeah, that's the robot dude.
Fuck yeah, let's go. My
Oh,
favorite
sweet.
concepts.
And he also did one Star Trek episode considered the best called "The City on the Edge of Forever," but he actually fucking hated that because of all the fucking rewrites and all that shit and whatnot. But that's a story for
Wait,
another
the
day.
dude who made I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream made a Star Trek episode?
Yeah.
Like, you know what's funny? I like me being a Star Wars fan, I'm tangentially related to Star Trek. So I find that kind of funny considering that nothing in Star Trek, at least, like at least going from like casual to a non-casual fan of it or whatever, right? Has kind of made me want to like go into it more than the fucking Moopsie from that one episode of Lower Decks.
Right. Yeah.
So just hearing about the dude who made I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream writing a Star Trek episode is actually very interesting.
Yeah. There might be some videos about like regarding like the production behind City on the Edge of Forever and whatnot. So I'm not going to like if I can find any, I'll put it in the chat and all that shit. So, or I'll put it in the channel description below, along with the segment that I should be talking about right now and shit. Because the reason why I wanted to talk about this in regards to like culture shock is because he talks about this one writer that was popular back in the earliest 20th century named oh god damn it, now I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name and shit. Hold up, actually let me
Honestly, like, don't worry about it.
Clarence Buddington Kelland. That's who I'm thinking of.
You see, look, we're sitting in front of computers. We could just look this shit up like that. So if we need to like get any references real quick, I'm good with speaking just out of my ass. So let's go.
That's why you're all here. You're here to hear our fucking social talks about us talking and shit about, just talking out of our asses and all that shit.
Tell us about the guy or whatever.
So, Clarence Buddington Kelland was a very, like, back during his day, he was a very prominent literary figure, as I am reading here in his Wikipedia article and whatnot. He's made about 200 short stories and 60 novels. One of his short stories actually did become a basis of a film, Opera Hat, which later became the 1936 film Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, which spawned the 2002 remake, Mr. Deeds, starring Adam Sandler.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Mr. Deeds,
there was wait, no, that's not true.
It's true. Mr. Deeds, the 2002 film by Adam Sandler, was a remake of a 1936 film called Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, starring Garrett Cooper.
You can get away with almost anything. If it's a remake of a 1930s movie. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah. So, anyway, Mr. Kelland had a, very somewhat illustrious career, and then after his death in 1964, he honestly became relatively unknown and shit. And Ellison basically reflected on that whole sort of like, descent from fame to obscurity and all that shit, and he used it as an example of, diminishing cultural literacy and everything like that, because another thing,
diminishing cultural relevance.
more so, like, again, because this was on a this was basically like a whole, like, editorial piece for a sci-fi show and everything like that. So it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
for him it was just like, because nobody's reading and whatnot, everybody's just watching TV and all that shit. I can respect the guy's writing and whatnot, but there were times where I'm just like, okay, Grandpa, it's time to take you back to the time to take you back to the time to take you back to your room and shit. But even he would
Oh boy.
even he would like fucking agree with that fucking sentiment and whatnot. To be,
Because I have feelings of very similar thoughts on a lot of things when it comes to certain degrees going forward with this conversation.
yeah,
But
but
he wasn't the harbinger or like the progenitor of cultural, like the idea of culture shock or like diminishing cultural relevancy / literacy.
yeah,
But he was a person who noticed it and decided, I'm gonna write about this.
I'm gonna more so. I'm gonna talk to the viewer about this on a fucking cable network and all that sort of shit and whatnot. But
Wait, this was on TV.
this was on the Sci-Fi Channel back in the '90s. You can actually find this stuff on
Wow.
his YouTube channel and shit. Yeah.
Damn, the Sci-Fi Channel used to be cool. Fuck. Well, yeah, no. Like, who watches TV anymore? Number one. Number two. God, man, the 100,000 Lake Placid sequels on the Sci-Fi Channel when I was a kid.
Oh, are you ready for Sharknado 37?
Oh, all right. The first two I'm cool with.
I know.
The fact that they were like, fuck yes, we're making a sequel and we're gonna make it shit again. Like okay, say like I'm one of those people who enjoys Birdemic 2 too. So it's like, yes, let's go. Make it more ass. Make it more stupid. Bring in the fucking giant jumbo jellyfish. I want to see.
Mhm.
I want to see more of the guy trying to pretend to be the dude who sang Dynamite and shit.
You want to be like JJ Walker?
Yes. Well, no, I want to see more of the fake J.J. Walker. Because what was it? Was it Starlight, Starbright? That was literally the beat to Dynamite. If you listen closely,
Oh, okay.
the guy from Birdemic, one that also sang the "Just Hanging Out, Hanging
Having
Out."
us, having us. I thought that was Wayne Brady for a second.
Wayne Brady.
Wayne Brady.
God, hanging out in that one Newgrounds server. I've seen a lot of images of Shaq, but completely unrelated to what it is. But it just brought that was bringing back memories from the fucking recent video game. And I almost called it Shaq NATO. Thanks, Zig.
Sci-fi. These fucking movies write themselves. Just get Shaquille O'Neal on board, and there you go.
Oh well, like look once again, like dissemination. I don't want to get like too into like the topic of like how bad the Sci-Fi Channel got, but I just gotta say, if people have cable right now, right, the Sci-Fi Channel right now is tanking. They got all it is just like bad novelty horror movies. At least in like 2007, 2006, around that time. Like I said, you had like they showed like a million Lake Placid sequels, but they also had like some random anime that were actually pretty good, like Rave Master or yeah, I can only think of Rave Master off the top of my head. But either way, back in the 90s on a famous TV show, you're telling me the guy who wrote "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream" talked about what we were talking about somewhat on TV.
Basically, yeah. You know
And
what I
that was not the first time that like this topic was ever brought up, I presume, or at least in like a big cultural and like as like a big cultural event type of deal.
He's talked about like other things too, like basically like the importance of like say recording like old panels and all that shit during like sci-fi conventions and whatnot, just because you're losing a lot of like interesting shit that's going on and all sorts of crap. You know what I mean? Plus, it would be like funny. It would be like honestly. Why did I say funny? It would be like interesting to see like the whole sort of like
I think I know why you said funny.
this whole sort of evolution of like how
It'll
earlier
just be
cons
lost
were and
media.
whatnot. Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that. I was thinking more so just like the evolution of
Well,
like say
it is important. It is important to record shit like that because what's the old saying? Don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. So,
yeah.
like,
I was more so interested about like this evolution of say like something like San Diego Comic Con where it's like how it started its roots from just like it was like in a conference room in like a fucking Marriott hotel and whatnot, becoming like the biggest fucking like the biggest fucking like thing today and all that shit. Where it's like
I guess fandom stuff just stops being niche, and there you go. It just takes off from there.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But
But that's a topic for another time.
exactly. But yeah, like thinking about all that and like
Hmm.
cultural literacy and just all that sort of shit just reminded me of like just like any feelings of culture shock that I've had in general. If we're gonna go by the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of like culture shock, where it's like that sense of confusion and uncertainty when you're exposed to like something like new to your environment or like a new culture without any sort of like you're basically just like jumping in head first and shit. You're just like, okay, what the fuck is going on here and whatnot, right?
Oh yeah.
And honestly too, the Arizona State University actually has a whole thing about like the 5 stages of just like culture shock and how to like basically succeed in each stage and whatnot, you know what I mean?
I see what you're coming from. I honestly think that there's two definitions for culture shock. There's the obviously the Merriam-Webster definition, but I also think it's kind of like similar to the childhood trauma phenomenon that goes on the internet. Basically, I would argue that this is the Urban Dictionary or whatever other like random dictionary sites that are like the Hiptionary, if you will, of internet terms. And I feel like that the internet definition for culture shock is more or less that feeling of like, damn, this is popular. Like you know about it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you'll be out somewhere in public. It's big enough that when you're out somewhere in public that's not related to anything to that thing, you
Yeah.
hear about it or you see it, so to say. Because like I know I don't know how we're gonna I don't want to like immediately dive into a story, but I feel as though we don't really feel a lot of the effect, like at least most people don't, or we're at least a little normalized to it when we're on the internet versus say out in public when you hear someone like completely random talk about something popular or something
Right.
that you specifically know that you wouldn't think that not many other people like know about or get into.
Yeah, yeah, that's I can see it that way too and whatnot. So for me, I actually do have like two examples of that sort of like phenomenon and whatnot, you know what I'm saying?
I have a few as well.
So I'll start with this one because we did talk about this a little bit, or at least this sort of like we did bring it up in our like sort of like
The last time.
the last time with the parasocial relationships and all that stuff. So Halloween 2021. Since we lived up on a hill on a court and everything like that, we didn't really get much trick or treaters and all that shit.
Hmm.
Well, historically at least. And since this was like we were just coming out of the pandemic, but people were still just like acting better safe than sorry and whatnot, more or less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't get that much trick or treaters and whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And this was like basically a year after like Friday Night Funkin' was first released and all that shit, right?
Yes.
First trick or treater I get in a while and whatnot. And you know who it fucking is?
Oh, yep. It's boyfriend from Friday Night Funkin', yeah.
Yeah, it's some kid dressed up as boyfriend from Friday Night Funkin' and whatnot.
Oh my god. That's brilliant.
And I see it, and then the first thing I think of is just like, holy shit. Like, I knew this thing was popular, but I would never think in my whole entire life that I would see somebody out in public dressed up like this and shit. You know what I mean? And it's funny,
And
and it's
I
funny
would
too, because
say
it's funny too, because I thought like because we did go to fucking the New York Comic Con that year, and I was expecting people to dress up as like Friday Night Funkin' characters and whatnot. You know
nobody
what I'm
really
saying?
was there?
No, it was just like basically just like your typical like anime flavor of the week and whatnot, and that one guy who was dressed up as Spamton. You know what I'm saying?
there was also, don't forget too, there was also all of like the fucking Ricks and Morty, well, Ricks and or Mortys that always permeated these places. But that's once.
I honestly remember the Hanson Squidward and that one guy who was dressed up as Jim Henson more than all the Ricks and Mortys there and shit. To be quite honest with you.
Well, once again, it's just an easy cosplay to do. So it like last minute, oh, just throw on a yellow shirt, Morty or whatever the fuck.
Hey,
But I don't want.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into that like too deep because I don't want to get into that too deep because like the Rick and Morty shit from a few years back was a sort of, I feel like was a sort of mass culture shock event. So that's more so neither here nor there. But yeah, nobody at Comic-Con was dressed up as any of the Friday Night Funkin' characters. And only two, those were simple cosplays. So
yeah, all you need to do is like dye your hair blue, get a white t-shirt and put like a fucking
or just wear a wig.
Oh, that too, and just basically draw a red circle with a like little line slash over it and shit, and there you go. You know what I mean?
Put a no symbol on the shirt.
Exactly. And go around saying beep boop bop, like
beep boop boop bop boop boop bop.
Exactly. Like when that happened and shit, like I told some people in another server that I was in, like, first trick or treater again, its fucking boyfriend from Friday Night Funkin'. And somebody was like, you should have should have done a rap battle with them and whatnot. And I'm like, fuck, I should have really, like, for candy and shit. You know what I mean?
I'd pay to see that. You'd trash this kid.
It's like, you want this candy? You gotta have to do a rap battle and whatnot. You know what I mean?
No, because my mind, I tend, because I as much as I love Friday Night Funkin', whenever I think of like a rhythm game event, my mind always goes to fucking Rhythm Heaven, like the little like musical like twinge.
Is that true?
Exactly, right. But yeah, no, like I'd pay money to see you rap battle a kid and make him cry by the end, because you got skills. This kid's probably barely.
With my enemies, you're gonna die in the hellfire.
That song is actually on Zig's Newgrounds. If you could find it.
It's called Inglewood 2 a.m.
Exactly.
There's a fucking picture of a white kid doing some like gang signs and shit, and there you go.
Fake gang signs, I bet.
No, it was the West Coast one, but like he has like those fat sausage fingers that they kind of look pressed together and all that sort of shit.
Yeah, West Side. All right. Fuck yes.
Yeah.
So you encountered the child from Friday Night Funkin' on Halloween. And that was a big culture shock for you.
Yeah, that was. There was another one that was kind of like a big culture shock moment for me and shit, right?
Is this the one that I almost brought up the Subway story that's completely unrelated, but it's a similar event to the Subway story.
I guess.
If I remember correctly, I don't want to spoil the reveal, but I have a feeling I know which one you're going to talk about next.
Yeah. So basically, back when I was still in college and whatnot.
Yep, it is this story.
So back in college and whatnot, and I was living in the city and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
B&H, this very popular, like, film and video store and whatnot, was at my campus to show off some of their new products and everything like that. Like one of those Bluetooth amplifier speaker things, some cameras, some nice cool like audio visual equipment and all that sort of cool stuff and whatnot.
Honestly, even like when you told me this story for the first time, I honestly thought that like the B&H thing was gonna be related to the culture shock. I did not expect the turn that it took.
Oh yeah, no. So
because once again, like we're at least because I'm in the city, so I always get like the B&H ad. So I'm like, I wonder if they got free candy, and I was gonna be like, when I first started, I was like half expecting you to talk about something like that. So. Alright, so go on, tell away, tell us what happens, Zig. I really don't want to spoil this, because you...
So, I was basically just browsing through all of their, shit and whatnot, right? Their products and all that, or at least waiting for the event to start and shit. Anyway, there was some like, film kids and whatnot there. They're just all,
Of course.
they're all waiting for the thing and whatnot, getting shit set up and all that shit, helping out the people
They're
from
definitely
B&H.
getting fucking free candy from B&H.
Yeah. And
filling their greedy little bellies with M&Ms and bunch of crunch.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed these three. I noticed like a couple of these kids, right? One guy and two girls and shit. And the girl was talking about like this guy she was dating with and whatnot at the time and everything like that, right? Now, I would say we're both products of our fucking thing and whatnot. We were basically one of the generations that basically had like unbridled internet access.
We were the generation that was raised inside. Yes.
Even then, I don't want to say that we were raised inside and shit, because again, I still have good memories of just like going outside and looking at a goddamn branch and just like
well, you know what I
nature
mean,
and
the
shit.
overall status. It's not like it's not like we biked down to the corner store on our own or whatever the fuck. We had to stay in the front yard and all that shit.
We had to make sure that our parents knew where the fuck we were and shit. And again, this was kind of before cell phones were big, or just as about they were getting big and shit.
Commerce, now known as TD, says it's 3:00 in the afternoon. Do you know where your children are? Whatever the fuck.
It's 10:00. Do you know where your children are? Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Fear, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. So we basically had like unbridled internet access and shit, right?
Yes.
So, I'm kind of eavesdropping on all that shit, and I hear the guy say, "Oh, is he like your heart sweet and whatnot? Like Rosa Chew and shit?" And then all of a sudden, all the bells and alarms went off in the world, at least in my fucking head.
And, oh dear, Chris Chan. Oh, God.
Because, again, it's like, I've talked to people out in the real world, so I was talking about, like, hell, I've told this story before. Like, one of the guys I met at community college, the first thing we talked about was the Russian gadget cult and shit like that. You know what I mean?
And look, something like that, even I gotta say, is a million times more interesting than fucking Chris Chan.
Yeah. But it's like, I've known people who were, like, basically as terminally online as I am and shit. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't think of that, a bunch of okay, the girl didn't know what the fuck the guy was talking about and shit, and he had to explain like fucking Sanchu and all that sort of shit and whatnot. But
oh my god,
never in my life would I, never in my life,
another soul.
Never in my life would I ever hear that like out in public and shit. It was just like, oh dear god.
Look,
like again, Comic-Con and all those other sort of things are fucking different and shit. I'm talking in a goddamn college campus in the middle of like in the heart of New York and all that sort of shit, right?
Speaking as an ex-curstorian real quick, yes, that is what they called themselves. I am not joking. So even right now, what we're discussing right now about this, what we are doing is literally called orbiting, right? We're not really digging into the Chris Chan shit, but we're bringing it up.
I don't even
at least
fucking care and whatnot. Like
no.
Hell, nowadays it's just like
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying that as like what. All right. What I'm saying is does have to go into it, right? What we're technically doing right now is called orbiting. The thing is though is that Chris has been orbited many times by randos who have nothing to do with the story, but they just know about him, right? And I feel like the most important thing is because I feel like this was before this. Everything about him, everything like super duper bad, like the current history time, right? That happened about him happened after you got out of college. So, Oh my god, that when he got arrested, that was the orbiter wave. That was one of the last events that I was following because after what happened and what came out, I said...
a lot of people did try to fucking insert themselves and all that shit, and it's just like, no! Don't even
Because
do.
people think it's a fast track to fame. It's not. Like
You're
Christian,
all getting like you're gonna get attention and shit.
it's not any
Which
attention you want.
yeah, exactly. It's like
Christian is a
you're going to
case
get attention
study.
for all the bad reasons and shit like that, man.
Exactly. Let me put the Chris Chan thing right now too. Chris Chan is a case study, yes, but let the people who are already involved in it and keep involved in it. Don't get involved with it yourself. You'll be much happier people if you don't. Because
Yeah,
I had a
we all have our lives to live and all that shit.
I might as well drop like my quick Chris Chan like mention that I've done. This was last year actually. Before I had my medical emergency and I was in the hospital for like a day. I forgot what it was. It was in the summer. It was at I think it was Eternal Con out on LI. What happened was I was just alone at the moment, right? I saw these guys. Somebody was cosplaying as Sonic, another as Knuckles, like the sort of the super classic Knuckles too, with like the hat and shit.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
when I ran into them, I was like, oh hey, Sonic and Knuckles, cool cosplay shit like that, right? I wanted to say something, like I wanted to do like a quick Sonic quote, right, just to be funny or whatever. But out of all the stuff that came out of my mouth, I stopped myself from saying "zap to the extreme." But in doing so, I said to them, I wanted to say something, funny, Sonic related, but what was about to come out of my mouth was zapped to the extreme, and I did not want to like do that with gusto. So I was, and then we had like a short conversation about Chris Chan, and I literally gave him the whole spiel of like, yeah, just whatever you do, don't get involved with it, please. You'll be much happier people if you don't. And that was the end. It was a nice combo either way, but
Yeah.
I feel like that was like that was more of a culture pause than culture. Well, yeah, a shock is like going into like pause mode for a sec, like forcibly. But either way, like I was almost that guy from your story there, but the situation was diffused because they knew about it tangentially. I just said, yeah, nah, like you don't want to look into it any more than you probably have or have seen or whatever.
Yeah. Also, too, like, if you're a Sonic fan, there's a really good chance you know who the fuck Sonic Shoe is and all that sort of shit. So it is
Speaking
just
from
like,
the experience of someone else, they said that when they went to a big Sonic-related concert, there were people dressed up as Christian, and it's just like, bury the dead horse already, please
Yeah.
stop it. We
Yeah.
know there was a whole episode of fucking Sonic Boom about it, which that's the other big culture shock moment for me where I'm just like, okay, this is funny, but at the same time, goddamn, I hate this and love this at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said you had a third tale
No,
of whimsy.
I just only
Oh,
have
those
the
are
two
the
and shit.
oh. Well, I guess I might as well talk about some of my culture shock moments before we move on to like the bigger picture. So one of them kind of was the Christian thing, as we just went over. Another one was this is more positive. So I went to it was Eternal Con again, but I was still in college at the time, so I was young, baby faced Marek. I hadn't started streaming yet, and this had to be like maybe my first year or second year in school. So I was still working at my first job. I basically was transitioning into the Merrick that I am now. The aged and wise, I hate modern AAA games. Retro games, retro and indie games are better. Hashtag fight me on the street if you don't think so. I was at it was either Eternal Con or the retro thing that's also around like the Cradle of Aviation area in LI.
Or as I like to call it, GamerCon and shit.
Exactly. So we were down in the board game section, which is why I think it might have been the Retro Expo. And I think they got rid of the board game section actually. So
Well, I
what
remember there being like a sort of tabletop area and whatnot.
I
For
think
like
it depends on the
Eternal Con and
con
shit.
because there's
Like
Eternal
no,
Con,
I
there's
remember
Cradle
there
Con.
being a tabletop section in Eternal Con and whatnot because I volunteered at
Yeah.
Eternal Con like back in 2019 and shit.
They might have because they usually because there's like a few conventions over at over at like the area of the Cradle of Aviation out on LI. So it could have been, it might have even been Eternal Con that set up specifically at the Cradle of Aviation at that point.
Yeah.
So down in the board game section, we were gonna play like some Candyland. We just needed some time or whatever, right?
Oh, fuck yeah, Candyland.
So the guy, one of the people that was like, chilling out, like they were, I think they were like just operating, making sure people were like putting the board games back, whatever, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about retro games and shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then literally same communal brain cell happens. He brings up Okage Shadow King.
All right, cool.
Literally my favorite PlayStation 2 RPG. Don't at me. I wish I could explain deeper as to why, but it's a very funny game, really good music, all that crap.
Yeah.
I'll argue a little half-baked, and it could be hard to get into for a newbie. But we had a nice conversation about that. That is positive culture shock right there. Which makes it suck because I'm going to talk about some negative culture shock. So this still somewhat baby-faced getting into like the aged Marek era. This was when I was like sort of slowly drifting away from that bad friend group that I was with at that convention for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if this was like slightly pre-pandemic or this was whatever, but I literally
before 2020 and all that shit.
I swore off of I like, so this was like, I think either the first or this was like the final time I swore off of watching the mysterious Mr. Enter on YouTube. I kind of swore off of watching that dude because he just kept going nowhere and whatnot, and it was just like, the same crap, different day.
Mm-hmm.
I was just waiting for like my bus at the terminal or whatever, yeah?
Yeah.
And I heard someone bring up stuff that Enter was talking about. And this was like literally in between changing music on my phone. So I was like, what the fuck was this? I hear him bring up, quote, the Toddler Titans, which was something that Mr. Enter talked about a lot around that time because it was referring to Teen Titans Go.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, like I said, I don't want to make fun of the dude. I don't want to make fun of him on a format like this, but like that was like secondhand embarrassment and like, oh god, I can't believe I ran into an Enter fan in the wild. I'm like, oh jeez.
Yeah.
It's like, you never think, and then it's like, oh hey, the one time you're like, oh shit, there we go, because there's always a because something like that especially is niche, like that in Okage is niche. I'd argue that the Christian thing it's been in the realm of like public knowledge because it was reported on the recent events were reported on the news, all that's what spawned the Orbiter wave and that type of shit. So there's a bit of a fine line between like culture shock moments that sort of can affect you and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and I just want to interject real quick. Like, I want to argue that, like, yeah, there was shit. That whole thing did basically bring her into like the mainstream and all that shit. But at the same time, too, it's like, that the only time that I heard about her was basically like Tucker Carlson and maybe like a few local like news stories.
I heard you hold back there.
What?
I heard you hold back there.
Yeah.
I heard you hold back there. No, that was great. But then, and there ain't nothing more, as much as I'd like to say Fox News even has its own niches, but like, Jesus Christ, there ain't nothing more like,
because I feel like the only people who know about this are just basically like right-wing boomers and people from like Virginia or some shit like that, you know what I mean?
And even then they probably forgot about it too.
Exactly. Because it's just like a flash in the pan sort of shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
They're always looking for something to fucking complain about. So it's just that it's like, flash in a pan. It's like popcorn. It's like popcorn popping. The next, one kernel flew out of the thing. Here comes another one popping up.
Basically, yeah.
It's always like that. So it's like I said, it's a huge nothing burger. It's a huge nothing burger, at least in like the public space.
Exactly.
It, like I said, it's a huge nothing burger in the public space, but it's still a slightly bigger cultural touchstone, which is why I think that there is a bit of a weird dichotomy between like culture shock and just being, in the sauce, so to say. Because I feel like the first time I think I truly experienced culture shock was at a Star Wars convention of all things, yeah?
Yeah.
Specifically that, because the biggest thing, like, 'cause once again, I was in high school, I was young. I'm like talking freshman. Or was I in middle school? I forgot. The time
Either or
lapse.
one of those.
Yeah, the time lapse there. The time lapse there is a pain in the ass because all that shit just kind of like blends together a little bit. School sucks. You move on. Anyway, just being there and seeing all the fans having fun, there being no fighting, all that crap. It is a bit more a fan of stuff, but it just being there and seeing people in like all sorts of like cool cosplays. That's true culture shock. Being like, oh yeah, dog.
What you're basically like talking about right there is basically like the excitement and the adjustment stage and all that sort of shit and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically immersing yourself in that whole sort of like, culture and all that shit. You know what I mean?
No, I get what you're talking about though.
It's like
You
you feel more comfortable and all that sort of shit. You know what I mean? You're starting to like be more knowledgeable about like certain terms and all that sort of shit regarding like, the fandom or anything like that.
Oh, it's basically the Trekkie stage.
More or
even
less.
though like we're not like people in the Star Wars fan. I don't think there even is, aside from one that I don't want to get into.
Oh yeah, no, I don't even want to. I'm not even talking about like that and whatnot. I was just talking. I was talking in a more general sense and all that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know. I get you. It's basically you're just in it. That's the whole.
Yeah, that's basically it. You've like immersed yourself into it and whatnot. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
you're reading up more and more about like all that sort of shit. Because honestly, that was kind of like me with Newgrounds and all that sort of shit and whatnot, right? Because I basically stumbled upon that site when I was a youngin' and shit. Little Babby,
Like most people.
yeah, little Babby Zig looking up fucking Mario stuff and whatnot. See this site called Newgrounds that's hosting Mario cartoons and all that sort of shit. See a bunch of ones where it's just like and I know I showed this one to you too, and I did discuss this when you first started streaming like Psychonauts and whatnot, like back in the old days. The old Mixer days, if you will, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, you know what? If we needed to like instantly have like a thing, we could just harvest. If we needed to instantly have an episode and we couldn't record or whatever, we could just instantly rip the audio from that and boom, instant free episode.
Yeah, because the stream melted and all that sort of crap.
The stream melted. Honestly, that's a great way to describe what happened that night.
Yeah, going back to what I was trying to say and all that sort of shit.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this place is weird and there's a lot of like stuff that's really going over my head and shit. Why is there a game called Kill Steve from Blue's Clues and whatnot? That sort of shit. And it's just like the more and more you like go further deeper and deeper into it, it's just
Everything by everyone.
Basically, yeah. Or as it was once back in the day, the problems of the future today and shit. That was basically their slogan.
I feel like it's a bad way of, I don't want to say bad faith.
It was tongue in cheek, Marek.
I know it was, but still, like it just feels like whatchamacallit. You're just basically you're smacking a label onto people, my dude.
Again, it was more so tongue in cheek than anything. But
yeah.
And
then the news hears about it.
Mm-hmm.
Which it did. Yep. There was a Newgrounds game on the news, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I know Netlore actually did an episode about this back in the day and whatnot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you guys want to go listen to their episode about, Newgrounds and censorship and all that sort of shit. So, and I'll put a link into that in the description and whatnot.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I gotta watch more Netlore, because I feel like there'd be a lot of...
They haven't really done a new episode ever since, like, their,
Ken Penders?
No, they've had more and shit. Jenny Cam, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, that's all that I have for the most part. Do you have anything you want to add, Marek? Or...
Well, I'd have to say that culture shock is more or less... It comes in many forms. Like I said, sort of the secondhand embarrassment type of ideal, too.
Yeah.
I think that a big one, especially with like the Newgrounds thing, there was that animation panel
Oh yeah,
from 2016
yeah.
that my
Uh,
reaction to hearing the guy was, I'm gonna jump out a window. I mean, which is bad, which is all right, already that's bad enough.
like I feel bad for the dude, but it's just like at the same time too,
No,
you're like,
he has it's not his fault. It's not his problem. He didn't do anything wrong. He
yeah,
just was in the
he was
he was experiencing his own form of culture shock, definitely. He
nah,
was in that
yeah,
he was
basically.
in that sauce. He was in that sauce. So I don't blame him for shit.
Like again, it's like a lot of a lot of those people who are just like very socially awkward and all that sort of shit and whatnot. You know what I mean?
It's everybody at a convention like that. It's everybody at a convention like that all the time. You're never gonna get so like the rest of that panel though, like fucking Rice Pirate. Like, looking back at that whole thing, it is a shit show. And talking about like that recording of stuff from the past, you know, making sure that it stays you know, known and shit, I guess, or like that it doesn't fall out. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that's a prime example. That's a prime example of that. It has to do with, you know, that was an event in time that will never be forgotten and whatnot. Now,
Right.
because, you know, it's recorded for posterity's sake, and everyone can feel the secondhand embarrassment straight from that. This shit, no, like this shit just goes like it goes like it just goes like layers deep, because especially like the term of shock, like I brought up before too. It's a medical term for the condition where your body just enters like a you're just like shut, you know, like you're in sort of shut down mode. Yeah.
I guess,
Once
yeah.
again, once again, don't consult us. Consult a doctor about shit like that. We are not a credible source for medical information or anything like that. I'm just
Yeah.
going off my
We're
own.
just
I'm just
two
going off.
we're just two dunderheads with a podcast and whatnot,
Yeah.
as I like to
So
say.
I feel like there's always a negative connotation towards it rather than a positive.
Uh-huh.
And that's once again mainly because I feel like it's like emotion almost. It's like emotion, especially because like I said, a lot of this is brought in with like because the term culture hits us in our feelings. It's a part of our world. It's a part of our like history as a species and as groups and as societies. Culture is literally everything.
Yeah.
Like what is it? I'm looking at my desk right here, right? I got a Rodimus Prime action figure right next to me. Literally, I have a fucking I have like a white boy podcaster setup surrounding me. Like across right across from me, I'm looking at my old computer. I got a fuck ton of stickers on it. I see Knights, I see the Cornerius symbol, I see Crystal from Star Fox, I see Nemesis, Rundus, the Night in the Woods gang, Ocellus from MLP,
Mm-hmm.
and just surrounding me, I got all sorts of shit. So it's like this is me in my culture. So it's crazy. So it's like there's probably always like a minute culture shock thing that happens every so often
Yeah.
where you know you it's like see. So that's why I think that it's so sort of prominent, and it sort of comes off that idea of the parasocial relationship, like from last time, like the he looked at me type of thing. It's like the term, if you ever seen the meme same hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, you know, same hat, same hat. That's where I think that's where like it's part of like a culture. It's sort of like the dictionary definition of memes. It's the DNA of the soul almost in a way.
Yeah. The
So
DNA of our culture and all that sort of shit.
exactly. And everybody takes like bits and pieces from it. So not everybody has the exact same experience, but we all know about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like we like no two people enjoy this. No two people enjoy the same thing at the same way. So there's all sorts of that. There's that layer to it as well because you know, using Transformers real quick as an example, right?
Yeah.
I grew up with Transformers Armada, yeah,
Uh-huh.
right. So I watched the Unicron trilogy starting with Armada and Transformers animated. I'm gonna cut out the 2007 movie real quick because that's sort of it's sort of irrelevant to my like, talking context here.
Mm-hmm.
So I mostly know about those 4 cartoons, right? And I've not really watched a single Transformers thing sort of after and before that. Well, until as of late, because I've been rewatching Beast Wars, and I've been, so I've been dipping my toes in the sauce, so to say, yeah.
Yeah.
As much as that can be taken out of context. So the thing is, though, as much as I love Transformers, right? And I love robots, and I love all the designs. I love like designs and crap like that, right? So it's nice that it's a mostly toy-based sort of thingamabob, right? It's a sort of toy-based show that I can easily get into because the toys in general too. I have characters that I like not because they have a deep, rich history or whatever. I like them because of their design, right? I can sort of give a flying fuck about their deep, rich history if they have a deep, rich history. Be there or be there not, right? I got like 2 fucking characters, right? I got a few. I got a few others actually that I don't know anything about their personalities. Some don't even have personalities. Never featured in the show, like Wingfinger or like Wingfinger is like a toy only character, or it's basically it because like Cog, like the Red Cog was in like the recent Netflix trilogy or whatever. But I also have a character. I also have a couple characters behind me that I know their I don't know their history because I never looked into what they were about. To me, I know what their backstory and what they're all about is by just browsing the TF wiki, right? I've never read the fiction, but that gives me as a fan the sort of like I can just make up stuff for them because I like the way they look. I bought the figures because I'm like, oh, these guys look cool, like they're cool looking robots. So it's like one of them, for example, is Iguanus. So one of the characters, for example, is Iguanus. What did I do for him? I looked at him. The name Iguanus. I looked into his backstory. He was just like a Decepticon pretender. So I was just like, all right. So now he's not really a pretender. He's just a robot that looks like a lizard with the name Iguanus and a Tesla gun and whatnot. So just thinking about it, it's like, what did I got? I am Iguanus. I made up. And that's not the full extent of his character, but that's a part of it. I made up a character because I liked it that way.
Right.
Like, there's no way I'm gonna track down like I think it was G2 or whatever thing. Yeah, fake Transformers fan, whatever, right? Whatever fiction that Iguanus came from, I'm not gonna track that down. It's like ancient history, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care about his personality. He wasn't featured in much since, so it's like it's free reign for me to just come up with something for him. Hell, I even turned his buddy Bombburst into a Richard Steven Horowitz character because I think that it fits his look, right. And he too is a cool fucking robot. So what is somebody gonna bust down my door and beat me up because I did that to that? No, I could do that in a public forum, and somebody who really cares about their fiction will probably get pissed off. As is a tradition with a lot of things, that's always gonna happen. But that is sort of like culture clash, I'd argue.
Yeah,
where the difference
that's more so just like culture clash or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Where it's just like you have this one interpretation of one thing, another person has like their own sort of like interpretation and shit. You know what I mean?
Of course, and there's like nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I like. Oh God, I've seen a few comments. I wanted to track down a comment from Reddit of all places that I saw once. It mainly had to do with the idea of like culture shock being this thing of like it's hard to explain without like the source material or whatever, right? But I honestly thought it was very insightful to the whole topic because it really was like it has to, like I said, it just has to do with like your own personal experience with something.
Mm-hmm.
So something could be of fading relevancy, as you said, like the cultural relevancy / illiteracy, or was it
literacy, illiteracy, yeah. Whatever you want to fucking call it and shit.
And I've seen a lot of negative takes on it because it's like it depends on how quote unquote political you want to get with it and whatnot, right?
even that like has its own can of worms and all that sort of shit that I
That can
personally
provide.
don't want to really like get into like further detail or anything like that.
You
That's
know, Tucker. You know, talking about Tucker Carlson has already made this political, so we've already made enemies.
I've just said it at a passing glance. I wasn't even like, you know.
No, no, dude. There's people who would take offense to that, no matter how you say it. So I really don't. I personally don't care. I'm just saying that's how. I'm just saying that's how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. But like, even did something like that, it's its own culture shock. Like, oh, this thing I know about was talked. Oh, this thing I know about was talked about on this random ass podcast and all that.
Yeah.
Like, I know for a fact I used to watch a podcast that, once again, depends on how political you want to take this. I used to watch a podcast that I don't want to say gave me culture shock, but it was a nice little cultural touchstone of the era I was growing up in. Or I grew up in, I should say, yeah. But
Uh-huh.
I slowly stopped watching it because I was basically watching two guys get radicalized. And it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of scary to see, especially because once again, this is, I feel like this is a bit more of a topic when it comes to like fandoms. Once again, topic for another day.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary to see. I don't want to see people that I've looked up to, but people that seem to understand at least some form of cultural literacy slowly become like the opposite of that. They become the okay grandpa, we got to it's time to go to your room, right? We're almost to
Yeah.
your room, Gramps. I've been feeling that a lot. I've been feeling specifically that from a few different things. And I wouldn't say that they're falling out of cultural relevancy. I just feel like it can sort of be a byproduct of having one's head up their own ass, for lack of a better term.
Hmm.
So what do you think of that? Like,
Ah, honestly, there's so much that I just kind of like I'm kind of just like probably have to sit back and just like ponder about it a little bit more or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's fair because like just talking about like media culture and that type of stuff too is in and of itself a very like deep think task, because it's sort of like, because even when you go into like sort of media shit too, just the culture, like there's culture around analyzing it.
yeah,
There's culture around analyzing it too. So thinking about this stuff, it just really goes deep. It's like I said, it's layers on top. Culture is literally layers on top of layers on top of layers on top of layers of things that just boil down into our just DNA of the soul.
mm-hmm.
You just go, all culture is culture. At least from my point of view, all culture is culture, no matter what it is. And it's just, like you said, to avoid going like deeper into like the political aspect of it.
Yeah. No,
I think that is
I think I get where you're coming from with that
we
shit
don't
and
want to,
whatnot.
I don't want to dig us into like, I don't want to dig us into like a super hole there. You want to talk politics? Oh, I'll break out my paper sheets and whatnot. We'll talk that. But
Nah,
I'm joking
nah,
around.
that's not really that's not really my intention here with this shit.
I've slowly stopped watching my fair share of things because that same hat feeling slowly went away, and it just gets replaced by like, I think I've matured past this, or I've lost the plot or something like that, or the opposite effect of like,
I think I see where you're coming from and shit. I think it's more so just like, you know, taste change, and
oh, of
along with
course.
that, like, you know, you kind of do lose the plot on like, you know, things and all that sort of shit.
You as a person know what you like. So it's always hard to it's always going to be hard to hear somebody who has a different opinion, right? Or even then, like, 'cause sometimes when I've stopped watching, it's the opposite. It's not like a different opinion. It's more so just like, are you sure you're like thinking with like a full deck there, but you know what I mean?
Again, more so of just like losing the plot or anything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, of course.
Yeah. Anything else in regards to that, or not really?
I think I've touched upon everything that I think culture shock sort of entails.
Yeah, same here.
More,
So.
more so, like I said, some of the ideas just boiled into fandom shit too. So, but I feel like that's going to be a topic for a different time.
Oh yeah,
As
no,
I keep saying,
definitely.
I think this one might be on a bit of a shorter end of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for this and whatnot.
I think before we go though, too, like once again, guys, we did. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about how our days went. So down below, tell us how your days went. Of course,
Exactly. Because remember.
we are definitely here for you.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good one.